Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Collinati. Today I'm going to talk about my most anticipated book releases from October, November, and December of 2018. These are the things I am most looking forward to, though there seems to be a crazy number of good books coming out in the last 3 months of the year, and I've had to whittle down my list quite a bit. Even then, with strict criteria, this is a pretty big batch of books. I am not as prepared as I usually am for filming today. I'm doing this in a bit of a rush, so I will be referring to my phone and reading a lot of descriptions. I hope you guys don't mind, but honestly, if I haven't already read a book, there's only so much I can come up with to say about. So without any further ado, let's get into this long list of books. I think most of these books are from October. For some reason, October is a very busy book release month. So the first one on my list coming out on October 2nd is The Lady's Guide to Petticoats Piracy by Mackenzi Lee. This is the sequel to last year's The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue, which was a ton of fun. It's basically young adult historical fiction. I think there's maybe a slight fantasy element. There was like an alchemical, non-scientifically explained element in the first book, which I didn't care for very much, but I am even more excited about this second book because it follows the younger sister of Monty from the first book. Her name is Felicity, and she wants to go to medical school in a time when that's not really allowed for women, but she's practical and logical and like everything I wanted to read about in the first book. Also coming out on October 2nd is Exit Strategy by Martha Wells. This is the fourth and final Murderbot novella. Don't be sad though, there's going to be a novel after this one. Don't know what it's about, but I'm also excited for it. So this final novella, not going to go into what it's about, but basically it's probably going to be the final showdown between Murderbot and the Grey Chris Corporation and what will happen to our favorite grumpy, anxious, autonomous security unit. I don't know, it's going to be great though. Then after that, The Consuming Fire by John Scalzi comes out on October 16th. This is another sequel, the sequel to The Collapsing Empire, which is the first book in the series. What's the series called? The Interdependency, I think. I really enjoyed the concept of the first book, but I remember being quite let down by the ending. I just thought there wasn't enough actual plot in the first book. It was all set up and I was like, I have to stop now and wait a year to actually get to the point of the story. But that book has definitely improved over time. I'm ready for some more fun stuff, and John Scalzi definitely delivers on humor and character types that I really enjoy. This series I think is going to have a lot of epic profanity-laden rants, and sometimes you just really want to read one of the John Scalzi style epic rants, because why not? But anyway, a little bit about what this second book is about. The Interdependency is on the verge of collapse because its interstellar highway system, extra-dimensional conduit, excuse me, that makes travel between the stars is disappearing, and that's no good. There are definitely parallels with climate change and climate change denial in this series. So Emperox Greyland II, the leader of the Interdependency, is ready to take those measures to help ensure the survival of billions. But nothing is ever that easy. Arrayed before her are those who believe the collapse of the flow is a myth, or at the very least an opportunity that can allow them to ascend to power. While Greyland prepares for disaster, others are preparing for a civil war. I'm probably going to enjoy it a lot. Coming out on October 23rd is Wundersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is a little bit unusual for me because this is middle grade fantasy. It's also another sequel. But I read the first book, Nevermore, earlier in the year. I think it was a nominee in, possibly winner, in the middle grade category for the BooktubeSFF awards. And this was such a surprise. I'd never really heard of it before, but it was so good. It's been compared a lot to Harry Potter, but I definitely think it goes out and does its own thing. It's about a young girl who's cursed. She's kind of rescued from her curse and may get the chance to enter into a magical society slash school school. I think it's called the Wondrous Society. Though, does she really have the powers or the talents that should allow her entry? So yeah, the first book was very good, and given the revelations at the end of it, the second one, Wundersmith, will be just as good. Another one from October 23rd is Red Moon by Kim Stanley Robinson. I believe this is a standalone science fiction novel, and I don't really want to ruin myself with a very long description. All I need to know is that it's science fiction, it's by Kim Stanley Robinson. That means I'm probably going to love it. A very short snippet from the description says, Red Moon is a magnificent novel of space exploration and political revolution. I'm also gonna guess a lot of it is set on the moon, so bring it on. Next is probably one of the most anticipated fantasy novels of the year, and one of the most anticipated sequels of the year. I'm sensing a trend with this video, they're all sequels. But of course, the book I'm talking about is The Monster Borrow Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. The first book, The Traitor Borrow Cormorant, came out 2 or 3 years ago. It kind of took everybody by storm. It was very good. And finally, we are getting the follow-up. So, it's been a while since I read the first book, so I need to remind myself as well of what's been going on. Borrow Cormorant's world was shattered by the Empire of Masks. To exact her revenge, she has clawed her way up razor-edged rungs of betrayal, sacrifice, and compromise, becoming the very thing she seeks to destroy. Now she strides in the Masquerade's halls of power. To save the world, she must tear it asunder, and with it, all that remains of her soul. I'm sure this is going to be magnificent, but also going to like rip my emotions to shreds, and I will be happy for it while I'm reading it. Finally, on to November. There are 2 books that I'm really looking forward to that are coming out on November 1st. The first one is Europe at Dawn by Dave Hutchinson. Now, I keep seeing the Solaris publication date of November 1st, but I've also like seen absolutely nothing about the book most of the year, and I'm a bit concerned, but I'm assuming it's still coming out sometime in 2018. This is the 4th and final book in the Fractured Europe sequence. I loved the first 3 books. Coincidentally, they kind of got like just catapulted people's attention a couple of years ago when Brexit happened, because, you know, the entire series is about Europe that is fractioned into hundreds if not thousands of little nation states and polities and stuff like that. And it has spy thriller vibes and like alternate world sci-fi stuff going on. It's really good, and I have no idea what's going to happen in the conclusion, but I'm really looking forward to it. The other book coming out on November 1st is Unholy Land by Lavie Tidhar. To be honest, I would want to read this book even if Tidhar's name wasn't on it, because like the cover art, I think this matches the cover of Central Station, which is Tidhar's previous novel, which I also really loved. But aside from pretty cover art, the book itself also sounds quite interesting. So this is what it says. When pulp fiction writer Lior Tirosh returns to his homeland in East Africa, much has changed. Palestina, a Jewish state established in the 20th century, is constructing a massive border wall to keep out African refugees. Does that ever work? While searching for his missing niece, Tirosh begins to believe he is a detective from one of his own novels. He is pursued by ruthless members of the state's security apparatus while unearthing deadly conspiracies and impossible realities. For if it is possible for more than one Palestina to exist, the barriers between the worlds are beginning to break. And that last sentence is all I need to know. That sounds fascinating. I'm gonna say this next book title with a really horrendous American accent. Vita Nostra by Sergey Dyachenko and Marina Dyachenko. This is translated into English by Julia Meitov Hersey. This is described as a Ukrainian fantasy novel, and I've had my eye on this English translation for a while, since it was announced like well over a year ago, because it looks fascinating. Also, it has a beautiful cover. That's very attractive. There's a very long description, but this is kind of a snippet that talks about what kind of genre it is. A complex blend of adventure, magic, science, and philosophy that probes the mysteries of existence, filtered through a distinct Russian sensibility. It's an astonishing work of speculative fiction reminiscent of modern classics such as Lev Grossman's The Magicians, Max Barry's Lexicon, and Catherine Arden's The Bear and the Nightingale. So it sounds like it has a lot of comparisons to live up to, and I think it sounds fascinating. Another sequel, another final book in a series, The Dark Days Deceit by Alison Goodman, which comes out on November 20th. This is the third and final book in the Dark Days Club trilogy, which is kind of like urban fantasy set in the Regency period with demons and demon hunters and a romance subplot that I'm really into, like intensely into at this point, which is a bit unusual for me. The first two books in the series were incredibly good fun. The second book in particular I thought was pretty darn near perfect, so I'm very excited for the conclusion. And while I don't care that much about a lot of romantic pairings and subplots in my fantasy and science fiction, this one I really want to know who Lady Helen ends up with. Possibly she'll end up with nobody. That is one I could really get down with. The final book on my list for November is another one that I think a lot of people are really looking forward to, and that is How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. This is her first collection of short fiction, and it was a relatively late announcement in the year. I think it took a lot of people by surprise. A very pleasant surprise though. I definitely need more to read by Jemisin. I've read all of her novels, and now this is a great opportunity to get into her back catalog of short stories, of which I've only read a couple, and yeah, something's gotta tide me over until her next novel. Those are all the books that I am most anticipating through the end of 2018. I'm in a bit of a bind at the moment because usually I pre-order a lot of the books that I am most looking forward to. However, I have run out of money in my book buying budget for the year because I have no self-control, and sometimes even I fail at self-discipline. So I'm going to become very practiced at submitting book purchase requests at my local libraries and cross fingers that my libraries also aren't running out of money in their book budgets, because that's happened before. Anyway, that's my problem, not your problem. Let me know if you were also looking forward to any of these books and if there are any that you are really looking forward to that I haven't mentioned here. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.